Welcome to Court with Judy 5, where every week we dive into real, gripping courtroom drama. From shocking verdicts to unexpected twists, each case takes you closer to the truth. I'm your host, guiding you through every step of justice. We'll explore high-stakes decisions, personal struggles, and the power of law. Each story reminds us why justice matters. So, join me as we uncover the unforgettable moments in every case.
The courtroom was silent in a way that didn't feel normal. It wasn't the usual hush that fell over the audience before Judge Judy entered. It felt heavier, like everyone sensed something was already wrong. At the plaintiff's table sat 14-year-old Emily Turner, small and withdrawn, her hands tightly clasped in her lap as if she was trying to disappear into herself. Beside her, her mother Sarah looked exhausted and tense, her eyes moving uneasily between her daughter and the parking officer across the room. Officer Daniel Price sat on the opposite side with his arms crossed, posture relaxed and confident, his expression showing clear indifference. To an outsider, he looked like he was simply doing his job. But to those who understood the case, there was something unsettling in the way he carried himself. When he glanced toward Sarah, he smirked slightly, and a ripple of discomfort moved through the room. The door behind the bench opened, and Judge Judy walked in with steady, controlled steps. She placed her folder down but didn't open it right away. Instead, she scanned both sides in silence, her expression already sharp with suspicion. Her gaze settled on Officer Price, who leaned back, still wearing that faint smirk. She said nothing to him yet. Instead, she turned to the girl. "State your name," she said firmly. "Emily Turner," the girl answered quietly. "And your age?" 14. Judge Judy's jaw tightened slightly at the answer, but she stayed composed. "All right," she said, "let's begin." Even before the details were spoken, the situation already felt wrong. A child sitting in court over a parking ticket she barely understood. A mother struggling under consequences that felt far too severe. And an officer whose decision was now under quiet but growing scrutiny. Judge Judy leaned forward. "Mrs. Turner, why are you here today?" Sarah took a shaky breath. "Your Honor, my daughter got a parking ticket while she was waiting for me. She didn't break any law. She wasn't driving. She was just sitting in the car doing what I told her to do." Her voice wavered, and the ticket? It caused more damage to us than you can imagine. Judge Judy's expression shifted slightly. She turned her attention briefly toward Officer Price, then back to the mother. "A ticket issued to a child," she said carefully. "Let's be crystal clear before we proceed. A 14-year-old was in the driver's seat." "No, Your Honor," Emily whispered. "I was in the passenger seat. The car was off. I wasn't even touching anything. And you were alone." "Yes, your mother told you to stay put." "Yes. And you followed instructions." "Yes." There were no extra words, no hesitation. Just questions and answers, but the room felt tight, as if the air itself had thickened. Judge Judy had already seen enough. She had already reviewed the citation, the officer's notes, and the paperwork. That brought this case out of a quiet administrative corner and into something far more serious. She finally opened the folder. Not quickly, not theatrically, just slowly, deliberately. For a moment, she didn't even look down at the documents. Her eyes stayed forward, fixed, as if the weight of what she was holding mattered more than the pages themselves. "This case," she said at last, "is not about a ticket." A pause. "It's about judgment." Her gaze sharpened, and what I'm seeing so far is that a 14-year-old child was punished for trying to stay safe while an adult failed to use basic common sense. Her eyes snapped toward Officer Price. "And I am going to find out why." The energy in the room shifted immediately. Subtle, but undeniable. People leaned forward without realizing it. Emily held her breath. Sarah tightened her grip on her daughter's hand until her knuckles turned pale, and for the first time since the hearing began. Officer Price's smirk faltered. Not gone completely, but cracked. Something was changing, and to understand why Judge Judy's expression hardened the moment she saw Emily sitting there. You had to go back to the night it all started. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't loud. It didn't feel like the kind of moment that would matter later. It was just an ordinary Tuesday, slowly collapsing under the weight of small decisions and bad timing. Sarah Turner was already behind schedule. Her shift at the diner had run late. Because a coworker didn't show up, and she couldn't leave until everything was closed, cleaned, and counted. By the time she stepped outside, night had fully settled in, and the cold November air cut straight through her exhaustion. Emily sat in the passenger seat, quietly doing homework under the dim dashboard light, trying not to add to her mother's stress. They were both tired in the way that comes from stretching every dollar and every hour too thin. There was still one stop left. The grocery store, just milk, just medicine, nothing that should have turned into anything more. The parking lot was crowded. Trucks blocking half the spaces, cars circling for openings. Sarah made 2 loops before realizing nothing close would open up. She checked the time, thought about the homework waiting at home, the laundry, the next morning already pressing in, and she made a decision. Stay here, she told Emily gently. Lock the doors, I'll be quick. Emily nodded. This wasn't unusual. It was one of those quiet routines they had built for safety and convenience, carefully balanced, carefully lived. But what followed would turn that ordinary moment into something neither of them could have predicted by the end of the cycle. The original $150 ticket had ballooned into more than $300 in charges. Emily had heard everything. Every exhausted sigh from her mother, every late-night calculation, every quiet moment of frustration that Sarah tried not to show but couldn't fully hide. Little by little, the stress seeped into their home, filling every corner. Sarah was changing under the pressure. She apologized too often, even when nothing was her fault. She stopped sleeping properly. She stopped smiling the way she used to. And Emily, watching it all, began to change too. She grew quieter. She stopped drawing. She stopped laughing. She stopped being a child without even realizing it was happening. The night Sarah found her daughter crying under her blanket, whispering that she had messed everything up, something broke in her. That wasn't supposed to be Emily's burden. So when a coworker told her she should take the case somewhere that wouldn't ignore common sense, Sarah finally listened. She gathered everything: the ticket, the rejection notices, the explanations, even photos of the parking area and the unclear signage, and sent it in. When Judge Judy's producers called and said they wanted the case, Sarah felt something she hadn't felt in months: hope. What she didn't know was that by the time they stepped into the courtroom, the file on Judge Judy's desk wasn't the same one she had originally submitted. While they waited for their hearing date, the case had been quietly reviewed, cross-checked, and examined more closely than either of them could have managed alone. Records were pulled. Procedures were verified. The citation history was checked, line by line. And Judge Judy didn't need long to sense it. The moment Sarah finished speaking in court, something in Judy's expression changed. Not dramatically, just enough. Slight tightening of her brow, a stillness in her posture. The kind of focus that meant she had already seen something in the paperwork that didn't sit right. She turned to Officer Price. "Officer Price," she said, her voice calm but sharp, "I have some questions for you." He straightened slightly, trying to hold on to his confidence. But there was a flicker in his expression, now small, uneasy. Judy opened the file and slid out a marked page. "This is the citation you issued to Emily Turner. According to your notes, the driver refused to move the vehicle. Correct?" "Yes, Your Honor," he replied. "And you stand by that?" "Yes." Judy leaned forward slightly. The driver you are referring to was 14 years old. A pause. The officer hesitated just long enough. Yes. I mean, the person in the car refused to move. Her eyes didn't leave him. The person in the car, she repeated flatly, was a child. Judy snapped, her voice cutting through the courtroom like a blade. A child who legally cannot operate a vehicle. A child who cannot move a car even if she wanted to. Yet you documented her refusal as though she were an adult driver capable of making that decision. Officer Price shifted, trying to recover. Well, Your Honor, the law doesn't say anything about age. A car can't be standing in a no-standing zone. Judy held him in a long, cold stare. The silence that followed felt suffocating. Officer Price, she said finally, I'm going to give you an opportunity to correct yourself, because either you didn't understand what you were writing, or you deliberately falsified part of this citation to avoid admitting you ticketed a minor. Which one is it? His jaw tightened. I followed protocol. Judy exhaled sharply, unimpressed. Ah, the famous refuge of people who've stopped thinking. She flipped the page. Your protocol also appears to include issuing nearly identical citations in the same curb zone over the last 3 months. She held up several documents. Some of these are written within minutes of each other. Can you explain how you evaluated each situation, spoke to each driver, and documented each refusal in under a minute? A murmur moved through the courtroom. Officer Price's face darkened. I'm efficient, Your Honor. Judy gave a short, humorless laugh. Efficient. That's one word. Her eyes sharpened. Reckless is another. Careless, incompetent. Choose whichever fits you best. She tapped the stack of papers. What I see here is a pattern? A pattern of maximizing citations in a high-traffic zone without properly engaging with the people you're penalizing. Her voice dropped slightly. And in Emily Turner's case, that pattern crossed a line. Emily lowered her gaze, her hands tightening in her lap. Judy turned back to Sarah. How long were you inside the store? 7 minutes, Sarah said firmly. I checked the receipt. I only needed milk and medicine. The car was off the entire time. And your daughter was alone in the vehicle, following your instructions? Yes. Judy closed the file, with a sharp snap that echoed through the room. Officer Price, she said, voice controlled but cutting. You ticketed a child. You documented her as a driver. You failed to note she was a minor alone in a locked, stationary vehicle. She leaned forward slightly. You treated a frightened 14-year-old like a defiant adult, when she was simply doing what her mother told her to do. The officer opened his mouth. Nothing came out. Judy didn't let the silence linger. You didn't follow protocol. You didn't apply judgment. And you didn't show basic decency. The courtroom stayed frozen. Sarah's eyes welled with tears. Emily looked up at Judge Judy for the first time, fear still there, but now mixed with something else. Relief, hope. Officer Price, who had entered with confidence and a smirk, now sat rigid and quiet under the weight of everything he could no longer talk his way out of. And Judy wasn't finished. The air inside the courtroom felt tighter now, like every breath had to fight its way through. Officer Price shifted in his seat, no longer relaxed, no longer confident. Whatever authority he thought he had was starting to slip. Emily stayed still, small and tense, fingers locked together. Sarah leaned forward slightly, bracing herself for whatever came next. But no one, neither the audience, nor the officer, nor even the camera crew, was prepared for the shift that followed. Judge Judy opened the file again. This time, she didn't pull out routine citations or standard paperwork. She pulled out something else, something heavier. A document stamped in bold lettering that immediately changed the atmosphere in the room. Internal Affairs. Officer Price's face changed the moment he saw it. "Officer Price," Judy said, her voice calm but edged with something far more serious. "Before you walked into this courtroom, did you assume I only had your citation report?" He swallowed. "I followed the law, Your Honor." "Course you did," Judy replied, her tone sharp with disbelief. "That's what everyone says right before things stop adding up." She lifted a page. "Are you familiar with Complaint 4-7B?" A flicker of panic crossed his face. That issue was unresolved. Judy's expression hardened. "Unresolved," she repeated slowly. "Another word for that is ignored." Silence spread through the room. She tapped the document. "This complaint involves a $325 citation issued to a disabled mother unloading groceries. You claimed you didn't see the disability placard." Her eyes narrowed. "And according to this report, your body camera was off at the time." A low murmur moved through the courtroom. Judy didn't pause, much like it was during the incident involving Emily Turner. Officer Price didn't respond. He couldn't. Judy turned another page. "Complaint 32-C," she continued. "A delivery driver. Oh, you issued a citation while he was on the ground suffering heat exhaustion." Sarah's hand went to her mouth. Emily's eyes widened. "And Complaint 301-A," Judy said, voice tightening. "A pregnant woman in her 3rd trimester. You cited her after she pulled over due to dizziness." She held his gaze. "She was taken to the hospital in an ambulance." The courtroom was completely still now. No movement, no sound. Just the weight of what had been sedaned, what could no longer be explained away. Officer Price sat frozen, finally realizing this wasn't just about one ticket. And Judy wasn't. "Done yet? Do you remember that case, Officer Price?" He stared ahead, jaw slack, sweat beginning to gather at his temples. The courtroom was completely silent, now so silent. It felt like the entire room was holding its breath at the same time. Judge Judy set the papers down with slow, deliberate control. Then she spoke. "You have a pattern, Officer Price." Her voice was steady, precise, and unforgiving. "A pattern of targeting vulnerable people, women, children, the elderly, the disabled. A pattern of choosing easy victims because you assumed they wouldn't fight back. A pattern of writing citations first and asking questions later." She turned slightly toward Emily. "And this child," she said, her tone softening just enough to acknowledge the girl while her anger stayed aimed at the officer, "was your next easy target." Emily swallowed hard, tears beginning to form. In her eyes, Judy didn't stop. She turned to Sarah. Double quotes, "Mrs. Turner, what were the financial consequences of this citation?" Sarah took a shaky breath. "I couldn't afford it, Your Honor. I worked 2 jobs. I fell behind on rent. With the late fees, it became $382. That's nearly a week of groceries for us." Judy's expression hardened further. A 14-year-old girl caused none of this, she said. What caused this was reckless enforcement by someone who forgot that a badge is not a weapon. Then she delivered her ruling. This court finds the citation void, the fees void, and the officers' conduct unacceptable. Gasps moved through the room, but Judy was already continuing. "Officer Price, I am forwarding this case and these unresolved complaints to Internal Affairs with a judicial recommendation for full review and disciplinary action." His face fell completely. "Your Honor, please." "No," Judy cut in sharply. "You don't get to plead now. You chose power over fairness. You chose intimidation over duty. And you chose a 14-year-old child as your target." Her voice rose, firm and final. "Actions have consequences." Emily let out a broken sob as Sarah pulled her close. Then Judy's tone changed. Soft, direct, human. "Emily," she said gently, "you did nothing wrong. Do you understand me? Emily nodded through tears. This was not your fault. The words landed like something heavy, finally being lifted. The courtroom exhaled all at once. Sarah whispered, "Thank you." "Thank you." Judy gave a single nod. Case dismissed. The gavel struck once, final, and then something unexpected happened. The audience rose, a standing ovation not for spectacle, but for release, for a child who had been blamed, for a mother who refused to give up. And for a moment where accountability finally outweighed authority, Emily buried her face in her mother's shoulder. Overwhelmed, Sarah kept repeating, "It's over. It's over." Judge Judy didn't react to the applause. She simply leaned back, calm and composed, as if the outcome had always been the only one that made sense. Justice, delivered without hesitation.